Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to step into the shoes of a digital detective. We're going to look at that critical, make or break first hour of a cybercrime investigation. Okay, so picture this. A cybercrime goes down. The clock is ticking loudly. Where in the world do you even begin? Well, when a system gets hit, that digital evidence starts to degrade, like immediately. So we're going to follow the high-stakes, step-by-step process of Windows forensics to see how investigators manage to grab those clues before they just vanish. So here's our game plan for today. We'll start by sizing up the digital crime scene. Then we'll get into capturing those digital ghosts. After that, it's all about searching the permanent record and then analyzing the system's mind, its memory. And finally, we'll see how it all comes together. First up, the digital crime scene. It's all about understanding the lay of the land. Now, the absolute first thing any investigator needs is a clear methodology. Why? Because in digital forensics, the order you collect evidence in, well, it's everything. You make one wrong move, like rebooting the machine too soon, and poof, your most valuable clues could be gone forever. The guiding principle here is something called the order of volatility. It's actually a pretty simple idea. You start with the most fragile evidence first, the stuff that only exists in the computer's active memory. Then, once that's secure, you move on to the more permanent data that's saved on the hard drive. It's literally a race to capture these digital whispers before they fade into nothing. So let's jump right into that first, most urgent step. We're talking about capturing the digital ghosts, that race against volatile data. This is absolutely where the clock is ticking the loudest. So what is this volatile information exactly? It's all the data that's just temporarily sitting in RAM, in the system cache, basically the computer's short-term memory. The best way to think about it is like digital eyewitness testimony. It's a live snapshot of everything the system was doing, what programs were running, who was connected, all of it. But, and this is the crucial part, the second you shut down or reboot, it's gone, for good. So the investigators on the scene, what's the very first question they ask? What time is it? Seriously. To build any kind of timeline of what happened, they have to anchor everything in time. They need to know the system's current time and, just as important, exactly how long that computer has been turned on. And what's wild is that they can answer these fundamental questions with just a couple of super simple built-in commands. Just like that, they've locked in the exact date, time, and uptime. They've basically just established the boundaries for their entire digital crime scene. All right, the timeline is set. What's next? Well, now the focus shifts to the people involved. Who is logged into this machine right now? And how are they connected? Are they physically sitting at the keyboard, or are they coming in remotely over the network? There's a whole suite of tools to paint this picture. You've got tools like PS Logged On and Log On Sessions to see who's active. But the Net Sessions command, that one's really interesting. It can show if someone is accessing files on this computer from another machine. I mean, can you imagine seeing an attacker's IP address with a file open during an active incident? That's a huge red flag. Now we get to a really crucial question. Who was this computer talking to? You have to understand that almost every modern cyber attack involves the network. So an investigator's next big job is to figure out what other computers this machine was communicating with. This is how you start to trace an intrusion all the way back to its source. The NBT stat command shows a quick cache of recent network buddies, but the real star of the show here is netstat-o. See, it doesn't just show you the active connections, it also gives you the process ID, the PID for each one. Think of a PID as a unique serial number for every single program running on the machine. So this one command directly links a network conversation to the exact software that's doing the talking. That's a game changer. So, with the most time-sensitive data captured, the investigator can finally breathe just a little bit. Now they can move on to collecting the non-volatile information. These are the digital fingerprints, the evidence that's actually written to the hard drive and will survive a reboot. So you really see the shift in what kind of evidence we're talking about now. We're moving from the fleeting, like an eyewitness memory, to something permanent, something more like physical DNA. We're not just looking at what was happening a moment ago, but what has happened and has been saved to the permanent record. So, what's a key question when you're digging through that permanent record? How about, what's been plugged into this machine? Attackers love using things like USB drives to sneak malware in or to steal data. So finding out what physical devices have been connected is a really, really important step. And what's fascinating is that Windows keeps a record of this stuff. There are tools like Drive Letter View that can pull up a whole history of every drive that's ever been connected, even if it's not plugged in anymore. This helps build a physical history of the machine's interactions, which can be a vital clue. Another really common tactic for attackers is to install their own tools on a system they've compromised. So a basic fundamental step is to do a thorough inventory of every application installed on the machine, just to find software that shouldn't be there. And you can do this with a single powerful command using WMIC, which is basically a built-in management interface for Windows. You run it and it spits out a clean list of every single installed app and its version. An investigator can then scan this list for known malicious tools or anything that just looks out of place. Okay, now let's dive into one of the most powerful techniques in any investigation, the complete analysis of the computer's memory, its RAM. This is where the real secrets are hiding. This is the digital equivalent of taking a perfect, high-resolution snapshot of the computer's brain at the exact moment of the incident. This memory dump, as they call it, has a massive wealth of information, running processes, what the user was doing, network connections, and even malware that's trying really hard to hide. But what happens when that brain, the RAM, gets full? Well, Windows is smart. It offloads data that it can't fit into a special overflow file on the hard drive. It's called the page file. And for an investigator, believe me, this file can be an absolute evidentiary goldmine. The incredible thing is what gets left behind in this file. I mean, even though the data is supposed to be temporary, you can often recover fragments of things like usernames, passwords, even encryption keys. And that isn't just a minor clue. Finding a single password fragment in the page file could be the key that blows an entire case wide open. All right, so we've collected the fleeting ghosts from RAM and the permanent fingerprints from the hard drive. So what's the big picture? What are the key principles that let us turn all this raw data into a coherent story? It boils down to this. First, order is everything. You have to follow the order of volatility, from most fragile to least, to make sure you don't accidentally destroy your own evidence. Second, remember that these commands are really questions. Each tool is used to interrogate the system to find an answer. And finally, the memory is where the story lives. The richest, most detailed clues about what was actively happening are almost always found in RAM. When you step back and look at this whole forensic process, it shows you that every single click, every connection, every command, it all leaves a trace. It's a pretty powerful reminder of the digital narrative that we are all creating every single day, whether we realize it or not. It really makes you think, doesn't it?